like to call to order, May 4th, Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission meeting. And then.
Approval of agenda.
Approval of agenda. I need to make a motion, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the agenda. Nice agenda.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Motion carries.
Carries, thank you. It's a group effort. And
Approval of April 6th, 2023 minutes. Motion to approve.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Sherry,
I will second that. All those in favor?
Okay.
motion
Motion
carries.
Carries.
I probably should ask if anybody says no, but they both said yes, so.
Moving on to the open forum. Nobody's here, so we are gonna move on from the open forum. Department reports.
Perfect, thank you. Just a couple of updates tonight. For the community center, there was a small leak in the sink in the women's bathroom that we were able to repair. Other than that, we are doing a lot of spring things because it's finally here. So the docks at Nisswa Lake Park were put in, pickleball nets are out. We've got the bases in, the fields are drug, so we're working on cleaning up a lot of limb debris and things like that. I've been out at Pocket Park weeding that. And looking into some repairs that are going to be needed for the fencing in the baseball field near the first base dugout. So pretty much just doing a lot of spring cleaning, spring prepping. Spring soccer moves outside this Saturday, so we've been getting those fields down and everything's ready for that. T-ball, youth T-ball will start at the end of May, but the schools and things are starting this week with field rentals. So all of that is going along smoothly. Seeing that we've been at it for 3 days. And then summer program registration also opened this week. So everything is moving along well. The Gull Lake Trail, they've been working on cleaning up the trees that were downed back in March. And so they're continuing some of their prep work. As soon as road restrictions lift, probably the week of May 22nd, they'll get going on more of the construction, and their plan is to start at the north end of Hazelwood Drive near the public water access and work towards Lake Shore. So they will be getting after it at a higher pace in the next couple of weeks. So detour signs and all of that stuff have been posted, and mailers have been sent out to residents in the area back in March. So trying to get the word out there, and it seems like people are fairly aware between the signing and the postcards and Facebook posts and things like that. So and last thing, just updating you guys on the Camp Lincoln Road parcels. I'm still waiting to hear back from some of the cultural review information. So it was recommended that we would need a phase 1 archaeological study out there. And I've been in contact with a couple of different agencies. They typically have 30 to 60 days to reply to things. So we're still in that window and I haven't heard back yet. So working through that over there as well.
Just to reply, they have 30 to 60 days.
Yes.
It might be a process.
It's a
No need to rush things, I guess.
Yes, there's a process, and but I often forget about that, and they will remind you of where they're at in the process. So do you guys have any questions on any of those items or anything else?
I'd like to make a comment about the pickleball courts.
Yep,
So we've spoke about this last year, about maybe having a broom or something there where people could clean that space off. Because the basketball court does get dirty with debris. So if there's access to a broom or some kind of a blower or something, that would be great. for
Yeah.
people.
I know a lot of people pack their own blowers last year, but yes, we can look at if there's a way for us to,
Just
Put a
simple, just
broom.
Garage broom.
yeah, a push broom out there somewhere.
That's when you know you've seen a real pickleballer. It's when they pull up with their own blower.
Yeah, the acorns are pretty bad in
They're
the
afraid
fall.
of injury. You roll an ankle on one of those acorns.
Okay, I'm totally interrupting and I'm sorry, but I got a call from a gentleman who, do you know the pickleballer that is called the Gray Ghost?
No.
He says, I've been looking for this, and it's a woman,
Oh,
because he
that's funny.
referred to her as a she. And this Gray Ghost is a really good pickleball player, but he always misses her and he wants to play her. So I thought I have to ask Sherry.
I will put my feelers out, Jenny.
Hey,
If they
We will,
call
we will
again,
locate the ghost, the gray ghost.
I know there's, if they call again, I know there's one they call it down in the Brainerd area. Gregory Park.
He's got a reputation, clearly.
Yeah.
so I just had to ask.
Okay, that's
Totally
funny. I will look that up for
Okay.
you. I'll give you a call probably in a couple days.
Sorry.
It'd be easy to find somebody like that.
YouTube might figure it out. Cool, any other questions, comments, thoughts, general department things?
You know, we could use a gray ghost as a fundraiser kind of a, just saying.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, then we can move on to new business in your packet. This isn't something that the commission has seen in quite some time. But we also haven't had two people give us proposals in quite some time, two companies. So for the community center maintenance contract, you had two in there. One was, I have the updated one from Climate Makers. It's the same language. The price has increased to $1,070. And then you also have a proposal from Mavericks. Mavericks Heating, and so just wanted to get the commission's thoughts, feedback, anything you guys noticed or you wanted to ask questions on. Thoughts on the comparison of the two proposals, if there's services that we're missing or we want to be looking at adding. But this is just a semi-annual maintenance contract to look through the heating and air.
Has Nisswa used one of these before?
We have been with Climate Makers for quite some time. And Maverick has done work on the community center as well and in a different capacity. So not his own business. He's new to his own business. So he's familiar with it, but we've been with Climate Makers for quite a few years and they've done the semi-annual maintenance plus they also just installed the air conditioners and the water heater.
And you've been happy with them, I'm assuming, otherwise you wouldn't have been with them so long.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that would be just the familiarity with Climate Makers. I mean, price wise, $170. For you said semi-annually?
Yep. A very, very low price point.
Yeah, so I was gonna
So
say,
that's really kind of a
if,
non-factor.
if we're happy with Climate Makers, I'd be hesitant to make a change for $170 over 2 years.
I'd say as of right now, to the service level that we're receiving, I'm pretty comfortable with, but if there's anything that jumped out at you as things that we might, as the building ages or things like that. It's not something this commission has seen in years, so I thought I'd just, since there was two of them, I'd bring them to you guys for opinion's sake. So. Other thoughts, comments? Keep it with climate makers. Until there's an issue. Complaints.
There hasn't been an issue yet, right?
Mm-mm.
So.
We need to make a motion for that? Can make a motion to stay with climate makers for our semi-annual maintenance.
And I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Cool. So the other thing that is been in your packet is the trail use policy, and this is awesome because I think this is your first time, all of you, first time seeing it. So this was actually started before I started working here. So it's gone through the commission a couple of times. It's gone through the Gull Lake Trail a couple of times, gone through that committee. You guys did receive an email from Paula, which she had several notes in questions regarding it, and we can certainly address those at any point here. But looking for specific feedback from this committee, and then, you know, per Paula's feedback and discussions with the Gull Lake Trail Committee, it will go through them too. But just, it's new to all of you guys, and wanting to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to read it and give your feedback on it. And then we can go through some of those other questions at any point here as well.
So is there just a concern that the golf carts can't use the trails? That they can't get from one trail to the Paul Bunyan Trail? That kind of thing?
So golf cart, there's a golf cart ordinance. So golf carts are with a purchase of a permit. They are allowed to drive on the roads, including county roads 18, 77, and 13. So golf carts are permitted on the roads per Greater Minnesota Regional Parks and Trails, who was the leading funding agency for the Gull Lake Trail. They do not view our master plan as having golf carts on the trail. So it gets a little confusing because the trail goes through 4 different communities. All the communities have different maintenance, different funding agencies. I have sent what we are proposing for a policy to the other 3 communities, as well as maintenance information that I have on trail upkeep. East Gull Lake has had their trails for years, and they do permit golf carts on them. But Nisswa has gone through the ordinance process and to allow them to drive on the roads. And so I do think that it would be, the golf cart ordinance says that it will be outlined in the trail use policy. So we do need to specify in the trail use policy that they are not permitted on the Gull Lake Trail. And so that would be one addition to specifically spell that out.
Doesn't Lake Shore also, they allow golf carts on the trail? I think East Gull Lake and Lake Shore allow the golf carts on the trail. Fairview does not, and then we wouldn't, correct?
Well, and then the portion in Lake Shore that is funded with this project
Okay.
would not be allowed to have golf carts.
Okay, so it'll just be their far west. Okay.
Yeah. So yes, while it is one trail, there's 4
Mhm.
communities and a lot of different agency oversight that was involved.
How is it communicated? How will it be communicated to community?
For golf carts or in
Yeah.
general, this
Yeah.
policy in general?
Yeah,
When they get their permit, they are. A lot of the stuff is on the website.
Okay.
Kind of ask their familiarity. They get a cheat sheet when they kind of purchase their permit.
Mhm.
But because we haven't had the trail, it hasn't really come up. So
Yeah.
that's part of what we'll have to do. once this policy is adopted and just kind of signing is gonna
That's
be a
good
critical
requirement
component.
For signage then.
And so that will be something that's coming quickly on the horizon here of things that we're gonna have to work through is wayfinding signs and things like that. And, you know, to the other question of if it's allowable in the tunnel or not, is that just golf carts? Is that snowmobiles? Kind of thinking through some of those things and whether that's in policy or through signs. But yes, that's
Okay.
all gonna have to be communicated out upon completing this policy.
What were the main reasons against golf carts on the trail?
It wasn't a part of the master plan that was adopted back in 2015.
Okay.
And a lot of it is safety. I mean, you know, a car and a golf cart are still 15 miles an hour difference, a pedestrian in a car. Part of it is the width of the trail
Yeah.
and the space that you need to pass, you know, a pedestrian safely. That's a big concern. And so those were some of the variables that came into it. This kind of, again, a lot of it started before I was here, and so we're just kind of trying to finalize it.
And I know a lot of the communities or cities that have trails that are connected to state trails will follow the state trail guidelines.
Sure.
Even though the municipality has the leeway to change it when it's a city, unlike here, but most of them that are near, like the Ball Bunyan, the Blue Ox, and so forth, they follow the state trail guidelines, just so it's consistent.
Sure.
And because of the state. Sure.
And yeah, the width, yeah, definitely makes sense to me. Those trails aren't very wide. I was just thinking with Grandview right there. I mean, it would be nice for a lot of people to be able to bring in their golf cart, you know, from Grandview to down, you know, bringing that
They
business.
do, and
to
they
down
can
there.
drive it right on the road.
It's true, it's true. Yeah, cause you can get on.
If they
77.
have a permit, they can drive it right on the road.
It's true.
So yes, it's taken a lot of years to sort out the different facts of all of that. Certainly, but based on the information that we have right now, you know, if the four communities wanted to get together and amend the master plan, then there'd be a process for that.
Sure. I won't take us down that road right now.
So that would be my recommendation, is that because it's not outlined in the golf cart ordinance, that we need to put that language in the trail policy. That at least on the Gull Lake Trail, that it is, golf carts are prohibited. But in terms of how we're communicating this, we also need to work on our signage on site as well as our mappings that we have available. Because you don't know if you're on the Gull Lake Trail, the Paul Bunyan Trail, if you're new to the area. So definitely there's a further communication piece in it too. Other thoughts that kind of come to mind as you were reading it?
Is there a clause in there for snowmobiles?
Yes.
Like,
Speaking of golf carts and snowmobiles, did you guys have thoughts on which way they should be directed into town? If it's through the tunnel, through the light? Are they both the same or are they allowed different?
Can you rephrase that or phrase that again, Amber?
So how do we want to move people into town? So if you're on a golf cart, are we looking to bring them up at the stoplight coming from Lower Roy Lake Road? Are we looking to bring them up at the stoplight and then to the roundabout and into town? Or are you looking to direct them through the tunnel? And then same question for snowmobiles.
Where have the snowmobiles billers been coming in?
There is a
Golf.
trail, I mean, yes, there is a handful that come off of Nisswa Lake and they'll go through the tunnel. But there is a snowmobile trail that kind of crosses by Subway. And so you can get on like the Paul Bunyan Trail and it brings you like through the roundabout and into town. Now, there is a handful of people that will come off the lake because they're riding the
Right.
lakes and,
Locals,
yep.
Yeah.
and They'll take the tunnel.
they already know that.
So Megan and I were talking about this a little bit and kind of couple different factors. If golf carts are not permitted to be on the trail, do we want to keep them routed on the road into town?
Probably.
That makes
Because
sense.
the switchback of the tunnel,
Yeah.
then I would consider to be a sidewalk trail as a separated path. Where snowmobiles are permitted to be on the trail. Also thinking time of year and usage, there's gonna be probably heavier usage in the summer months.
Mhm.
Creating more congestion through the tunnel and the ramp to get up. So just a couple of things that were kind of running through some of our heads when we were considering, trying to figure out how to get people safely.
Did HKGI, did they have any kind of idea? I mean, we talked about that earlier when we were going through the plans, right? We were talking about the signage. Did they
We
have any ideas?
we mostly talked about it in terms of bikers and pedestrians, trying to route them. Once they come up out of the tunnel to then go to the triangle and cross at the crosswalk at the Triangle gas station to hop on the Paul Bunyan Trail.
So you're talking about more from out of the city coming in or out of
Or
the
vice
town.
versa, but mostly more like pedestrian and mostly cyclists, if they're gonna continue, if you're trying to connect to the Paul Bunyan to keep your bike ride going. That's how we were thinking of routing them.
I think I agree with you, Amber. I think closing down that tunnel in the summer for golf carts, I think would be a good idea. With bikers, and I just see that being a big issue spot with how wide they are and a biker coming around the corner. And yeah, if we're already telling them they can't be on the bike path. Or the Gull Lake Trail.
I agree too.
So better to just sign it and try and direct them up at the
Yeah.
stoplight and then to the roundabout and into town that way.
Yeah, because if they're not coming from the lakeside of 371, I mean, there's really. If they're not already, they're not supposed to be on the trail already, I can't. Picture too many golf carts coming up from that way anyways. They'd probably be coming from 77.
Well, and then the other discussion point too is if they do follow Hazelwood and they get to the tunnel, there's not a parking spot for them to leave their golf cart on that side
Sure.
and walk through. That's supposed to remain for fishing overflow. But should we have at some point that parking lots that's been discussed at Nisswa Lake Park, then that could be an option to park over there as well and walk through.
Yeah, anybody who owns and has a permit for a golf cart. I feel like once you see the sign once, you'll understand not to take that route the next time. It could be a signage up.
Be hard to get a golf cart up anyways.
It can make it.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that there's snowmobiles that make that turn.
I
do.
feel that. Yeah.
Is it? Cause it's not groomed. Supposed to just snowmobilers back it down, but that's a sharp turn for snowmobiles.
You have to go slow. Yeah.
Okay, well, I will certainly pass that feedback on to the Gull Lake Trail Committee as they kind of digest this information as well, and just kind of how leaning more towards going through the stoplight versus through the tunnel. The other question that was proposed was looking at trail maintenance and if that should be included in this policy. And kind of where I land on that one is in terms of our general trail maintenance, I don't think that needs to be in policy form. We will just handle it as we need to. What I do think would be beneficial in there is when we're talking about obstructions And just that we have to maintain a clear zone around the trail. And so just educating people that we need 2 feet on each side of the trail. We need a 10-foot high clearance. And that's what we need to safely have that trail through that space. And so when I think of maintenance, that's where my mind goes, of that we have to keep that space free of, dangling limbs and things of that nature. And then maybe possibly saying that, we're not removing snow because it is allowed for snowmobiles if we want to spell that out. So I don't know what other thoughts you guys have on trail maintenance and included in policy form.
My 2 cents.
Sure.
I think when it comes to maintenance like that for the trails, that should fall under your purview. I don't think it needs to go into the policy.
Is your mic on?
But I think that just should stay in your purview. No policy.
And I think a separate component of this one is, again, for communities. And on some level, it'd be nice to have some continuity between all of us, and each community has their own little nuances as well that we need to be mindful of. So I think that came up under golf carts and maintenance.
No, I mean, gonna say it, nothing that I can think of that stands out right now. I think when it comes to maintenance, we lean heavily, in your opinion, on that, just seeing, being in the day to day.
Yeah, like I said, I think the only thing that I see is under the near the obstructions category of just the clear zones,
Yeah.
basically, and that we will maintain a clear zone.
And as things arise, you can make an addendum or add in, right?
Correct.
Based on that.
Yep. So yes, there's a lot of this stuff that will just happen outside of policy. Signage, communication, education, maintenance, all those things will still need to happen. And I kind of look at this, should we need to go to an enforcement standpoint? Do we have all of our things in here that we can, as of right now, foresee?
Is that good for new business? Okay, old business.
Old business. This is gonna probably remain an old business for a while. As we keep sorting through it. So. Part of our last meeting, we discussed how engineering, marketing, fundraising, how all the different components, could play off of each other, the order, that we'd like to see it in, things like that. And we kind of landed that the commission wanted to see some engineering start this year while general awareness took place. I did bring that information to city council at the April 17th council retreat. And based off of that information, I also reached out to our city engineer for a very, very preliminary cost estimate on engineering. So these numbers were taken from some of HKGI's estimate, just kind of knowing a little bit of the industry. Standard on engineering is about 8%. So when we're looking at, $9-10 million project, total engineering, it's not far off for the estimate to be at over 700,000. So it is kind of tracking with that. We're at the 30,000 foot view. We don't have a lot of information yet. And so those are some of the preliminary numbers that I wanted you to see, as this was the commission's kind of recommendation is to get going on some of this stuff. Council saw this information and they reiterated that they wanted to do marketing, marketing and fundraising to get some money before they start on engineering plans. I talked to the engineer about some of this stuff, and it's kind of a back and forth where you got to do some marketing fundraising to get some money, to do some engineering to get some more money. And they've seen it work that way several times. And as of right now, we don't have a way to fund, any part of this park, let alone its entirety.
Yeah.
And so kind of going back and forth on some of that stuff, trying to hear all the different points of feedback. We did reach out to HKGI, who did the master plan for us. As they kind of know the history of that stuff and just kind of what marketing support they might be able to offer. And so I emailed out some of that stuff today. And one of the common next steps in marketing is to bring that concept design to a 3D animated state. And so they understand that we're still working through what exactly we want, what our timeframes are. They understand all of that stuff. So I kind of just asked them to give me kind of a low, medium, high, scope. Kind of a low price point would be just having some 3D images that could bring the space to life, but it's not like a fully animated video clip. That is a possibility as well. And then knowing that there's an educational component to this. What are we trying to do? What are we hoping to how are we going to do that? What's that timeline look like? I asked them for some of their examples on just kind of info sheets, kind of some information things. And so they provided a couple examples on that stuff as well. So I know this information is all very, very fresh to everybody. But you guys are kind of familiar with HKGI, the people, the process, how their final products look. The newest being kind of these animated visions. And if this is a marketing awareness route that we would want to go, if so, when, and then in terms of price point, they know we're still building our plan. And so they kind of gave a few different price point options, for a couple images, it's maybe $3,000 or so dollars, to build it out more. You're looking at 8,000, you compare the animated clip with a full-on video promotional thing like that, if that's a route we'd want to go to. And so I would say their price point is comparable to some of the other marketing information we received earlier on, but really just trying to define what we're trying to do, when we're trying to do it, and going from there. So I'm open to discussion on this topic.
I mean, it is tough to fundraise for $700,000 worth of engineered plans before you
Get a product.
get a product. So I mean, I get that, but I just. Yeah, I'd hate to. I mean, how do you can't make any promises to anybody without those plans. Maybe not a full scope, but you can't say we're gonna put this in the ground. We need we need $200,000 and we'll give you a pickleball courts. Well, we need a parking lot, we need electrical plans, we need drainage plans,
Yeah,
we can't promise that without some sort of engineered plan, so it's hard to know. Yeah.
well, I'm trying to think, yeah, exactly. We don't know the feasibility of anything yet.
Yeah.
and trying to, we kind of talked a little bit about different benchmarks, right? We're gonna try and get this benchmark, and maybe if we fundraise this much, city council, putting it out there, would match this much. And we get to this level, and then that would make for a grant or things like that. And so it's not something that I've fully written out and developed, but just thinking like, yes, you got to do a little bit to get a little bit more to keep progressing. And as of right now, you know, we talked about how we need to look at this on some level, the space as a whole, before sectioning out the different elements of the park. The whole space doesn't have to be done together, but a portion of it does. When we're looking at the ground and things like that, we'd want to, but just kind of trying to figure out what those benchmarks are. Some of the items could fundraise faster than the others and cover the entire cost.
So we had a plan with HKI, right? We had the original plan. Then they gave us the plan. We have a general idea of the space and how we want to use it. Then was there an engineer? When last time we spoke last month, didn't we talk about there was going to be there was an engineer involved and he was going to do kind of a scope out?
That's the commission's recommendation. The city council does not want to go that route.
That's this here?
That's the information I got based off of the commission's feedback. When I brought it to city council, they did not want to go that route. They want to try and generate more funds. Because as of right now, we don't have a way to pay for anything.
So is there any money in any of the funds for any of the pickleball courts or anything? So were any of the fundraising or any of the, you wrote some, you did some grants, right? So did we hear any from any of the grants back?
Not for those things. The grant that we've been looking at, the outdoor rec grant, is a 50-50 match. And we don't have any park funds available for those matching dollars. So it'd have to go through a different city fund. But within parks, we don't have the money to even put in for a matching grant right now.
So when I was looking at this, Amber, I'm looking at it as taking like little tiny pieces of it. You know, so I know they had a issue where they want to do marketing, fundraising, engineering, and the construction. But taking certain pieces of it, if you did like a priority list, like take 2 or 3 of the projects that we wanted, that the community wanted, or the issues with the park that needed higher priority, that was falling apart, you know, that we needed to replace right away. Is that a way realistically to look at that project?
I think so, but on some level, you still have to look at the space as a whole before you really dive into any specific section. So kind of, like, for example, pickleball. Where we think we want to put pickleball could impact the park. So if you just got to kind of look at the space as a whole, at least on some level, not, you know, full plans for everything. But on some level, you look at the full space, and then you can, you know, whatever our priority is, then you can build up from there once you get that foundation set.
So you're saying that wasn't part of the plan when we did the original from HKGI? That wasn't part of the.
No, it's to scale, but there's no engineering to it.
I mean, if
Yeah, it's tough.
Yes.
we really don't, I mean, we really don't have many options. I mean, we have to get some kind of funds to move forward.
So also in your packet, I did, just for informational sake, put in there the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Fund.
Yeah.
Information. So we are getting that initiated as a place to house any donations. So that's the critical piece in this process too, is to have that, that avenue set up. And so that's almost at its completion. Probably May or June, it'll be finalized, and then they'll be active to accept donations and house all that. And so that's, you know, before we can even take any money, we gotta do that too. So yeah, it's just kind of trying to figure out what those benchmarks are that we can, shoot for as, we have all talked about the whole park in its entirety and, 10 million plus engineering is pretty big fight.
Right. And
So just,
harder-
are there smaller benchmarks that we can identify within that process? And then city council obviously has to figure out what they're willing to spend in the greater scheme of all the city projects.
I kind of look at the council's perspective is, so when we had our retreat and Amber came in and went through everything with the whole council. One, a couple of us had an idea of what engineering would cost. That money's not there to do the full engineering at the one time. You want to have one company do the engineering. Two, we've been working with the Brainerd Lakes Community Fund, setting that up. So our thoughts were kind of stepping into, hopefully we'll have the fund by 1st to mid-June set, if I understand correctly. So it was kind of our thought that once that's set, it would be kind of nice to have some marketing at that time also, so people can see, okay, I want to donate. And then as the funds come in, looking at the possibility of matching grants. Also, if money comes in and it's like it covers the engineering cost and pickleball courts or whatever, then we get the engineering done and that put in. That is also will give us time to look at the sales tax that we're looking at to help with the parks. And that is a long drawn out process. The hopes are that, never know, we could hopefully next summer. I mean, latest, I don't know. My hope is the latest would be the spring of 2025. That all depends on the funding sources and how it comes in. As things go, yes, there's things that the council can do and discuss to see if we can use some of the city funds. That's just where we're at. Sure. It's excitement.
I see things and see, I just see linear things, I go, just take the priorities, work on that. Do the engineering on the high priorities, then you do the marketing and then you do the fundraising, and I kind of see things that way. I know you got to see things as a general big project, but you have to break it down a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just gonna go. Think about priorities. And people are gonna be more apt to give money when they know that when there's a project. Going, if there's a project, there's something that you see being built.
Well, if
Excited
construction's
about
not till 2025, 2026, it's hard to, start donating now, and we understand that, and really trying to just figure out, I think part of what I want to do next is try and figure out with council what those benchmark goals are. So it's not like we're going for the full 100%, like what can we do when we hit 20%? Okay, now what can we do when we hit 40%? And then, if something gets to that level and we can cover the engineering, and then, we want, everybody's gung ho for that playground, and the funding is there for the playground, or you get the grant and, build it from there.
And it can be broken down that way, pickleball courts, the engineering and the whole, and everything is costing X dollars. I can't remember the dollars on that. Playground is this, the warming house and the rinks are this, and that, separate out. See who wins.
So the community fund, you can specifically put to a subcategory, and it's not just for parks, it's all city things. So if, the hockey rink's your thing, you can pick hockey rink. If you just love parks in general, you can just parks in general. So that fund is extremely versatile for the city as a whole. But you can specifically state an area of interest with that. So that's a nice feature.
Still can't believe engineering costs that much.
What's that?
And then
Can't
some.
believe Engineering costs that much.
You just
You
take
gotta
the
look at
engineering
10%.
parts.
You start at 10% engineering on any project.
I wouldn't have thought that for a project like this when it's, I mean, there's more to it than I realize. I understand that, but we're not going up, we're just going out, we're talking about ball fields and pickleball courts. We're not talking about 45 stories up. You know?
There's a lot to it, water lines, electrical lines.
Yeah.
Will it space in, won't it space in, what are setbacks?
Yeah.
No, it is kind of jaw dropping when you see that.
Mm-hmm.
So per council's feedback to begin on marketing, they didn't specify a timeline or a budgetary amount. It was kind of just, we know that it can be a multi-year endeavor here. And wanting to do it right, not fast. And so you guys saw some of the previous proposals, which were all great for their respective areas. This goes in a different direction. Is this a direction that we think we want to go in? And if so, is this the time to do it?
You mean go with this marketing program?
Go with, yeah, like a 3D renderings, bringing it a little bit more to lifelike versus the concept design drawing.
I mean, I like that. I mean, those are pictures that we'll be able to use from now until 2027, or whenever this project finishes. I mean, I just feel like we'll find 1,000 different uses for those. Between online material, posters, I mean, you name it, we can use those pictures throughout our marketing scheme. So
I would be in favor of putting renderings to it, and anyone can get behind pictures. A 2D for most people does nothing.
I'd say this makes it easier for people to feel the space, which is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
To visualize it that way.
Get more of an emotional connection to it.
Yeah, and if you go back into your emails and you look through it, there's links to videos that then become animated and it takes you down the paths and through the parks and things like that. So we can go with the still photos, we can go with the animated tour. If you think any of those things would be beneficial. Kind of my question is, is this summer the time to do it? Or is it still too early?
It's pretty early.
How are we funding this first marketing if we were to move forward with this?
City council would have to determine which fund it would come out of.
Sure.
If you say you want to start marketing, you want to do it to this date, city council time.
Again, in my opinion, I just think whether it's now or 6 months from now, we'll always be able to use these images and this marketing thing. So that would be my vote, is to do it right away.
The harder question is the infographic, since we're still working on kind of what that timeline is and what those funding sources are. But I think on some level, there might be an infographic that we might be able to start producing at this time too. But if you guys have thoughts on what that might be, I'm certainly open to hearing them.
So where would the first place that you'd put these photos out to?
I think there's, the traditional, we have our Facebook page, we have our website, we have the council chambers, I can put them in. The community center, we can put them in the chamber, given their approvals. I'm sure they can go in the paper, and we can pay for advertising and things like that. I don't know if there's any place with the community fund if they have, I don't think they do that stuff, but certainly check with that too. Um, Can
What
make
if
a
you-
little
what if-
reel,
What if you
put it on
did,
YouTube.
what if you did like a board of these pictures? And you had it in different places, like in the park? You know, like this is where this could be, and this is where that could be. You know, and that kind of thing, and just kind of like you lay it out with photos.
But all the pickleballers in the skating rink see a big poster.
What's that?
Yep.
Then does the fund do you use the marketing to communicate this fund as well?
Yes,
Yeah,
to try and funnel to
yeah,
that if people are ready, willing and able to donate.
seems like it makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I was involved with a similar project where that's what they did, started with the marketing, they knew what they wanted to do, they did put a 2-year, you know. They had all the plans, they set them up similar, to what you said, into the areas where they would be. They had the funds were coming in, they also put on there hoping to start on this day in this year.
Only we had the money.
Well, yeah, but they didn't put it that way. But they did say or sooner as funds come
Yeah.
in. And they were hoping to start digging and everything in 6 years. It was 18 months later that they started. Because the marketing was well done. People could actually see what it was going to, and so it amazed me, because I've been working with fundraising for many, many years, and that one just surprised me. I was like,
Because it happens so fast.
Because it
is what
happens
you're saying.
I mean, I think at this point in time, looking at a timeline, I mean, it would be pretty difficult for the stars to align to get something in the ground a year from now, starting a year from now, that's a really quick timeline. So I think, I mean, if we were to advertise spring or summer of 2025, we'd maybe have some funds coming in from tax or
Sales tax.
sales tax. And then plus we'd have some time to do some 2 years to do some marketing. Maybe we could get enough to do some engineering over the winter months. I think it could be plausible to say 2025 and stick with that.
Yeah, and so much of it's dependent on how quickly any donations come in to then start on engineering or to go for a grant, because then you're on the grant timeline, not your timeline, you're on their timeline.
That's true.
And then also with sales tax, another way I see this going is if the council gives us approval to try for sales tax, it goes through legislation first. So it has to be approved through the state in January before it comes to a community vote. So the next voting is November 2024. So it has to pass that first step in legislation. And then if it passes that first step, we got a lot of work to do to educate the community so they know what they want to do when it comes time to vote.
Yeah.
So that's another piece of this.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, if the council is seeing that there's some type of activity and funds coming in, whether it be through sales tax, even though that's a drawn out process, or better possibility of grant, like I don't want to assume, but I would think that they would be more open for pulling funds elsewhere to help us get going on engineering. So that we can hit the ground running when the time comes, versus now, I get it, they're looking at $700,000 for engineering and we haven't even started, so I think if we can, in that 2-year timeline, if we can prove that, okay, yeah, there are multiple sources of funds coming through, even if we didn't have them tangible, we can prove that, yeah, these are the steps that we're making. I would assume that they would say, hey, okay,
there's a clear, you know, revenue source coming in, let's temporarily pull funds and help them get going.
Yeah, because right now, you know, we don't have the money for engineering, which is 700,000, and even if we did, we don't have the money to build it.
Yeah.
So it's tough because they both have to kind of keep moving together, and that's kind of where we're at. And you know, city council's given the direction to start on this end of it, and so,
Well, you know, Amber,
Keep
once
going.
Once it starts moving, it's gonna move,
oh, yes.
you know, it's just get the starting point of it.
One, if you look at the Gull Lake Trail, so that started. We got recommended for funding in November of 2020. And now we are breaking ground 2023.
Mhm.
So there's an example of moving through the process.
Before we actually got hit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so. I thank you all for joining me on this journey. You're here for a reason.
The council is excited about what needs to be done with the parks. We just kind of want to see where you guys. We threw it back into you threw it to us, this is how you wanted to go because we asked you. And we said, well, we'd kind of like to focus on this because we don't have any money right now to put there. So I think as long as you guys have your direction where you're going, kind of a timeline, because that's hard to do right now.
Mhm.
We'd be more than willing to figure out how to get it going.
So what I'm hearing from you guys is we like what HKGI has proposed. We're willing to kind of go through any portion or all of it. We want to do animated.
Yeah, I mean. I guess I would my only comment on that would be maybe hold off on like the. Animated walkthrough until we have a purpose for it. You know, definitely get like images going, and then if we had like a. Event or campaign or something where we're like, yeah, it'd be really nice to have that. But I don't know, maybe going back to my first point, maybe it would be just nice to have it. Accessible.
Well, this is the first we've heard about it. So, I mean, I've only looked at it for 5 minutes.
Yep.
and this is just rolling through my head. So for me, I like to think about things before I make a proposal or, you know,
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
I would have to mull it around a little bit, you know, at least give me, look at it through. I'm still looking at the big project, you know, now we start to talk about marketing. This is like switching my direction.
Yeah.
Real fast.
I thought you were linear. This is
That's not.
top priority right now.
But in general, this seems like a better route to go than the other marketings that were presented
Yes.
at this time.
For me,
Okay.
yes.
I think people will be very excited about. Visuals like.
And
this.
obviously HKGI is familiar with us, and once they have those still images, it's easier to build from there. So,
Yeah,
Is this something you would want to bring to the council at the end of the month?
potentially,
Okay, so then what I would recommend is you take a couple of weeks to think about it. And then, I don't know if you can meet again to make a motion.
Or text you, call you.
feel free to give me a call. We can talk it through, but right now I'm not seeing any signs of like wrong way, Amber, don't go. So unless there's major red flags that you guys have at this point, I mean, council's gonna have to figure out the money. And that will in part dictate the product.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 different proposals with different price plans too. Right? If I read it right.
Yeah, they kind of, so the graphic renderings are the 3D designs. So for about 3,000, they could build out a couple specific portions of the park, 2 to 4 images. And then for that like 8,000, you're looking at 15 to 25 images. So you can go anywhere in between. You can go bigger, you can go, I won't go smaller. So it's in the same realm of what the other proposals were. The previous marketing proposals were anywhere from 8 to like 30,000. And council didn't have an issue with that. So, and then they have the video rendering fly-throughs and infographics. So I would say it's somewhere, 5,000 to 15.
And then, yeah, from a marketing standpoint, in the grand scheme of this project. 10 grand. Isn't that
Not
much, and we're gonna be able to use this throughout the whole thing. So I'd rather. Do it right.
So yeah, why don't, feel free to take the next week, think it over, review it. If you have any specific questions, definitely reach out.
Do we need to get together to make a motion on this?
I don't think so.
I think if you give Amber some feedback after you've had time to look at it, she can just present that to the council and she can state, this is what happened.
This is the feedback I've received
sure.
and
Right.
that should be fine.
You have to do all, or can you pick and choose from the different marketing concepts?
Oh, we can pick and choose
Pick and
and
choose
mix
from
and
the top
match
chart.
and
Okay.
it says bottom, with regard to fees, and services outlined above, we will work within your budget to create effective, impactful promotional materials. So
Okay.
if you have an epiphany over the next week and you're like, Amber, this is it.
Yeah.
Then let's see what we can work with them, since they do have a familiarity with us and vice versa.
Yeah, I do, yeah, that is nice that they are very familiar with the project. Do they, because they are landscape architect firm, would they have the ability to engineer our whole project? They do not.
No, they have a graphic designer now, though.
That's it. Okay, so they couldn't engineer it.
Nope.
I do like this proposal better than what was suggested last month.
Cool.
This makes more sense.
I think this is just really impactful for helping bring the project to life and getting people to have a sense of what it could be. I think those other tools could be effective later on,
I agree,
but pictures are helpful.
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, so yes, let me know if you have any additional thoughts, ideas, questions in the next week. Otherwise, I will just present the general feedback to city council and pretty much it's a la carte based on what we want to spend. So if they give me a price point, then we can determine within that what our priorities are and direct HKGI accordingly. Wonderful. Anything else on old business? Either the marketing timeline projects, funding, community fund? Any final discussions and comments in general?
I don't think so.
Next meeting would be scheduled for June 1st. Usually over the summer, I try to reduce our meetings as best as possible. So if there's pertinent things, we will certainly meet. But I'm trying to be mindful of that. So just wanted to let you know.
We have a council budget meeting on the first also.
Sweet. Anything else?
No.
Otherwise, a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Tonight's meeting.
All right.